Amelia adjusted the deep green satin of her gown for what felt like the 100th time, smoothing out the wrinkles that seemed to appear the moment she moved. Her 7-month pregnant belly made balancing elegance and comfort an impossible task, yet she managed it with practiced grace. The grand chandelier of the gala hall sparkled above her, casting a warm glow across the crowd of high society elites. Wealthy businessmen in tailored tuxedos clinked glasses of champagne with models and actresses, their laughter echoing through the marble hall. Amelia's hand rested lightly on her husband's arm, Charles, who was the epitome of confidence. His tailored suit hugged his tall frame perfectly, and the charming smile he gave the surrounding guests reinforced the image of the perfect, powerful couple. Every eye turned toward them as they entered, whispers of admiration floating through the crowd. Social media photographers snapped countless pictures, and Amelia forced herself to smile at the flashing cameras, hiding the apprehension that lingered in her chest. Charles leaned close, murmuring compliments with a charm that felt more like ownership than affection. Guests envied Amelia's elegance, her serene poise despite her advanced pregnancy, but no one saw the subtle tremor in her hands or the worry shadowing her eyes. Beneath the public display, Charles was a master of control. He had a way of making her feel like an object on display, a trophy whose sole purpose was to enhance his status. Amelia knew she had to hide her unease, because any sign of weakness would invite a quiet, cutting remark later. As she navigated the polished floors, smiling and exchanging polite words with other guests, tension simmered beneath the surface. The glimmering lights and soft music did little to mask the coldness that had grown between them over the years. Amelia hoped, against hope, that her baby would soften Charles's controlling nature, but deep down, she understood that appearances were the only thing keeping her in this gilded cage. Even amidst the glittering lights and the soft hum of the gala, Charles's temper simmered just beneath the surface, and Amelia felt its presence like a shadow she could never escape. A misplaced glass on the table, a laugh that was slightly too loud, or a hesitation in conversation, all were enough to draw a pointed look or a sharp comment. "Try to keep up," he whispered as she lingered a moment too long in conversation with a fellow socialite, his tone carrying the unmistakable edge of authority. His criticisms were subtle enough that no one else would notice, yet biting enough to make Amelia shrink inwardly. When he dismissed her opinion in a discussion about the gala's charity auction, brushing her idea aside with a patronizing, "I think I know better," it left her feeling invisible, as if her voice and her presence had no value in his world. Amelia's heart raced every time he moved around her, every time he interjected in her words. She forced smiles at the other guests, laughed politely at jokes, and nodded in agreement when necessary, all while feeling the invisible weight of his control pressing down on her. Those around them, the wealthy and influential crowd, assumed that the tension was simply the natural friction of high society life, perhaps the small quarrels of a couple accustomed to public attention. They could never see the subtle abuse woven into their interactions, the way Charles made her feel like a puppet in his perfectly orchestrated show. Despite the fear and the constant anxiety, a small part of Amelia clung desperately to hope. The life growing inside her, the baby she carried with tender love, might awaken something in Charles, a sliver of compassion, a hint of care. She dared to believe that the innocence of her unborn child could soften his iron grip and make him a partner, not just a master. Yet deep inside, she questioned if such hope was naive, knowing full well that appearances could mask the harshest realities. As the evening progressed, Charles's ego grew more pronounced, fed by the attention and admiration he received from everyone around him. Every glance, every compliment, seemed to inflate his sense of control and dominance, and Amelia could feel the tension tightening like a rope around her chest. He didn't even bother hiding his wandering eyes, allowing them to linger on younger, impeccably dressed women attending the gala. Amelia's heart ached, each flicker of his interest elsewhere a silent humiliation that she had to swallow with a polite smile. Charles's words, when directed at her, were laced with belittlement. "You really should try to stand straighter," he commented, his voice just loud enough for nearby guests to hear, though he framed it as a playful tease. Amelia's cheeks burned, not from embarrassment alone but from the deep hurt of knowing he was intentionally highlighting her vulnerability in front of others. Every small gesture, every casual remark, reminded her that her achievements, her grace, and even her pregnancy were secondary to his desire to control and dominate. Alcohol only worsened his behavior. With each sip, his charm thinned and his sharpness intensified. Conversations that began with polite engagement devolved into him asserting authority over every interaction, correcting people, interrupting discussions, and making Amelia feel like she didn't even exist. She tried to engage politely, but he frequently spoke over her or dismissed her contributions. The gala, meant to be a celebration, became a stage for Charles's display of power. Amelia moved through it quietly, carefully, and with every step, she felt the weight of his obsession pressing down on her. Even in this world of glitter and opulence, the thrill and admiration around them did nothing to mask the danger that lurked in his controlling gaze. She realized that no social applause could protect her from his unpredictable rage, and that her only hope lay in patience and caution. The grand entrance to the gala was nothing short of breathtaking. Massive crystal chandeliers hung from the high ceilings, casting sparkling light across the polished marble floors. Ornate decorations lined the walls, gilded in gold and adorned with fresh flowers that filled the air with a faint, delicate fragrance. The room was a sea of elegance, filled with powerful figures from politics, business, and the arts. Men in perfectly tailored tuxedos and women in couture gowns mingled effortlessly, exchanging pleasantries, deals, and carefully calculated compliments. Amelia's heels clicked softly against the marble as she entered, her hand gently resting on her swollen belly. She felt a mix of excitement and dread. The gala was an opportunity for Charles to shine publicly, but each step reminded her of the delicate balance she had to maintain under his watchful eye. Every movement was observed, every smile calculated, and every conversation silently judged by both allies and competitors. She tried to focus on the beauty of the setting, on the glittering lights and the music, but a persistent unease gnawed at her. Unbeknownst to Charles, several of the attendees he believed to be mere guests were actually highly trained undercover security specialists. They had been placed strategically throughout the hall, observing Charles's behavior closely after prior reports of domestic abuse. Each subtle gesture, every glance, and every interaction was being noted. Amelia had no idea that her safety net was already in place, quietly waiting in the shadows, ready to intervene if the situation escalated beyond control. The soft hum of classical music filled the gala hall, but Amelia barely heard it. Charles's attention had turned toward her, his sharp eyes scrutinizing every movement she made as she stepped onto the dance floor. He whispered a pointed remark about how slowly she moved, just loud enough for nearby influential attendees to catch the comment. "Careful, Amelia, you don't want to trip in front of everyone," he said with a tone that sounded polite to strangers but carried an unmistakable bite. Amelia's cheeks flushed with a mixture of embarrassment and hurt, yet she forced a polite smile, nodding as if she agreed. She could feel his controlling presence like a physical weight, pressing her into submission as she tried to maintain composure in front of the high-powered crowd. As Charles continued to make subtle jabs, mocking her pregnancy and highlighting her discomfort, Amelia's anxiety grew. The whispers and glances of nearby guests added to her unease, though no one suspected the true depth of tension between them. She moved carefully, trying to stay graceful despite the invisible pressure that Charles exerted over her every step. Meanwhile, the undercover security agents began to shift discreetly around the room. Their trained eyes assessed Charles's posture, his facial expressions, and his increasingly aggressive tone. They positioned themselves strategically, ready to intervene at the first sign of actual violence. Amelia, unaware of the silent protectors around her, continued to play the part of the composed, elegant wife. Inside, her heart raced, both from fear and the realization that the man beside her, the one sworn to love and protect her, could be so unpredictable and dangerous. The gala, meant to be a celebration of elegance and achievement, became a stage for Charles's cruel theatrics. He leaned close to Amelia, his voice low but intentionally sharp, and whispered words meant to wound. "You really shouldn't be wearing that, it doesn't suit you," he said, his eyes scanning the room as if daring others to notice. Amelia's stomach tightened, not just from pregnancy but from the humiliation of being singled out in front of a crowd that had once admired her grace. The guests, polite yet intrigued, glanced between the two, sensing tension but unsure of its severity. Charles continued, raising his voice just enough for nearby attendees to catch, "You look tired, weak, not fit for this company of people." Amelia clenched her jaw, forcing herself to maintain composure, aware that a single tear or flinch would give him the satisfaction of control. Around them, whispers spread like wildfire, and several guests discreetly lifted their phones, capturing the subtle cruelty in snapshots and videos. Amelia's pulse quickened with every click, each recording another potential evidence of Charles's public aggression. Unbeknownst to Charles, the undercover security specialists had noted every gesture, every cutting remark, and every tightening of his jaw. Their eyes followed him meticulously, scanning for any indication that his verbal aggression could escalate into physical danger. They positioned themselves closer, ready to step in at a moment's notice. Amelia felt trapped, forced to smile and nod while tension coiled around her like a snake, but she drew small comfort from the invisible protection surrounding her. Her heart raced, the embarrassment biting deep, yet beneath it was a growing awareness that she was not entirely alone in this perilous situation. The atmosphere in the grand hall shifted in an instant. Charles, fueled by alcohol and unbridled rage, snapped. His eyes darkened with fury as he seized Amelia's arm with a force that sent a jolt of fear through her entire body. Before anyone could react, he yanked her close and attempted to strike her, his movements aggressive and erratic. Glasses toppled from the tables, shattering on the marble floor, and guests gasped in horror, their elegant laughter replaced by cries of alarm. The room erupted into chaos as attendees scrambled away, unsure of how to intervene against a man of such power and stature. Amelia screamed, clutching her belly instinctively, tears streaming down her face as panic surged through her veins. The gala's dazzling lights now seemed cold and menacing, reflecting the terror of the moment. Charles's rage was unrestrained, each motion was unpredictable, a dangerous mix of physical strength and blind anger. Around them, plates clattered to the floor, champagne spilled, and the previously composed crowd froze in shock, some recording on their phones in disbelief. From their concealed positions, the undercover security agents moved with practiced precision. Within seconds, they converged, surrounding Charles with a professional calm that contrasted sharply with his violent energy. Amelia felt a slight, reassuring presence at her side as one of the agents gently guided her towards safety while the others engaged Charles. Despite his attempts to resist, the trained specialists quickly immobilized him, neutralizing the immediate threat without harming Amelia. The chaos continued around them, but she could finally breathe, though her hands trembled and her chest heaved with adrenaline. In that terrifying moment, she realized the depth of danger she had been living under, and also the silent protection that had been watching over her all along. The moment felt surreal, as if the entire gala had slowed down. The undercover agents, previously blending seamlessly into the crowd, moved with sudden precision and authority. They converged on Charles with a coordinated swiftness that was almost cinematic. Amelia, still clutching her belly and trembling from fear, watched as these silent protectors revealed themselves, their professionalism stark against the chaos surrounding them. The crowd froze, gasps filling the air, some guests instinctively raising their phones to capture the unfolding scene. Charles, caught off guard, snarled in frustration and attempted to resist. He lashed out wildly, but every movement was anticipated. One agent moved to his left, another to his right, strategically blocking his path and cutting off any possible escape. Charles's attempts to push past them were futile. The agents were trained for situations like this, their calm focus unwavering even as he thrashed in blind anger. With firm, controlled movements, they immobilized his arms, guiding him to the floor with minimal force yet absolute authority. Each step of their intervention was deliberate, designed to protect Amelia while subduing Charles without causing unnecessary injury. The crowd could hardly believe their eyes. The man who had been the picture of charm and power moments ago was now struggling helplessly against a wall of professionals. Some attendees whispered in shock, others recorded every second on their phones, documenting the extraordinary reversal of power. Amelia's fear slowly gave way to relief as she realized she was no longer in immediate danger. The agents maintained a protective perimeter around her, their presence a silent reassurance amidst the spectacle. In that moment, the gala transformed from an elegant celebration into a vivid demonstration of the consequences of unchecked aggression, and of the people quietly prepared to intervene when power turned violent. Amelia's legs felt weak as paramedics and additional security personnel arrived, guiding her swiftly toward a secure, private area. The grandeur of the gala faded behind her, replaced by a sense of safety and urgency. She clutched her belly instinctively, still trembling from the adrenaline that surged through her body. Despite the shock, she was unharmed physically, though her emotions ran wild, fear, relief, and disbelief colliding in a storm of sensations. The crowd was in chaos. Guests whispered frantically, some continuing to record videos on their phones, while others tried to console Amelia from a distance. Flashing cameras captured the unfolding aftermath, each image and clip spreading quickly through social media channels and news outlets. The dramatic intervention by the undercover agents became the focal point of every recording, the highlight of a night that had begun in celebration and ended in terror. Charles, still furious, had been restrained and was now being escorted away by security. His attempts to shout, struggle, and regain control were met with firm resistance, and he realized, too late, that his power held no sway here. The humiliation of the moment added a bitter edge to his anger. The man who had commanded boardrooms and social events now faced helplessness in public view. Amelia, seated safely and surrounded by protective personnel, finally allowed herself a deep breath. She felt the first glimmer of relief that she could see her child would be safe. The chaos of the gala continued to swirl around her, but for the first time in a long while, Amelia recognized that she had survived the immediate danger. The combination of quick-thinking security, timely intervention, and her own resilience had ensured that she remained protected, her life and the life of her unborn child intact. Amelia lay on the hospital bed, the sterile white walls and soft beeping of monitors offering a sense of safety she hadn't felt in hours. Doctors and nurses moved efficiently around her, checking vital signs, monitoring her stress levels, and performing gentle ultrasounds to ensure the baby was unharmed. The trauma of the gala still clung to her, a cold weight pressing on her chest. Every memory of Charles's aggressive outburst replayed vividly, sending shivers down her spine. Yet with each check, each reassuring word from the medical staff, a small wave of relief washed over her. She was physically safe, and more importantly, so was her unborn child. Security personnel remained just outside the room, their presence a quiet shield. Amelia could sense them even when she wasn't looking. The knowledge that trained professionals were nearby, prepared to intervene if necessary, allowed her to exhale in a way she hadn't been able to at the gala. Despite the comfort, a residual fear lingered. The adrenaline from the attack had left her body tense, her mind replaying scenarios of what could have gone worse. In moments of quiet reflection, Amelia realized the fragility of life and the danger she had narrowly escaped. The ordeal had stripped away any illusions about safety behind wealth and status, leaving her with the stark truth that courage, vigilance, and timely intervention were what had preserved her life. As she held her hands gently over her belly, she vowed to protect her child at all costs, and she allowed herself the tiniest spark of hope that this nightmare might finally end, replaced by a future in which she could live free from fear. Within hours, videos of the shocking gala attack began to circulate online, shared across social media platforms and picked up by news outlets. The footage, showing Charles's aggressive actions and the swift intervention of undercover security, went viral almost instantly. Comments poured in from viewers around the world, condemning his behavior in strong, unflinching terms. Hashtags calling for justice trended globally, and the story dominated headlines. Charles, once admired for his wealth, charm, and influence, became the target of widespread outrage. Corporations and sponsors immediately distanced themselves, severing ties with him to avoid association with the scandal. Investors demanded emergency meetings, concerned about the stability and public image of his company. The man who had commanded respect and power now faced public humiliation and condemnation on an unprecedented scale. Amelia, meanwhile, received an outpouring of support. Messages of encouragement and praise flooded in from friends, strangers, and fellow survivors of abuse. Media outlets highlighted her bravery and composure during the crisis, portraying her as a symbol of courage in the face of violence. Comments on her social media accounts expressed relief that she and her baby were safe, and many lauded the actions of the undercover agents who had protected her. The contrast was stark. Charles's world of power and influence crumbled, while Amelia's bravery and resilience were celebrated globally. In the face of unimaginable fear, she had survived, and the public recognition of her ordeal reinforced her newfound sense of strength. The viral outcry also served as a reminder that unchecked aggression carries consequences, and that courage and intervention, both personal and collective, can shine even in the darkest moments. Alone in the quiet hospital room, Amelia's emotions finally reached a breaking point. The adrenaline that had kept her composed since the gala began to ebb, leaving her raw and vulnerable. Years of fear, shame, and constant tension, carefully hidden behind smiles and social graces, erupted in uncontrollable tears. She sobbed openly, clutching her belly, the weight of everything she had endured pressing down on her chest. Every insult, every subtle act of control by Charles replayed in her mind, and the realization of how close she had come to harm overwhelmed her. A gentle hand rested on her shoulder. A nurse, sensing her vulnerability, spoke softly and assured Amelia that her reactions were natural and valid. She encouraged her to let the emotions flow, to release the burden she had carried alone for far too long. "You survived," the nurse said quietly. "And you made the right choice. Protect yourself, and protect your baby." The words were like a lifeline, giving Amelia clarity and courage. She began to understand that leaving Charles was not a sign of weakness, but a brave step toward reclaiming her life. As the tears subsided, Amelia felt a strange mix of relief and empowerment. She made a silent vow never to return to the toxic environment she had endured for so long. Her focus shifted entirely to the life growing within her and to the future she intended to build, free from fear. The hospital room, once sterile and impersonal, became a sanctuary, a place where she could start the long, delicate process of healing, finally able to trust herself and embrace the strength she had found in surviving. In the days following the Gala attack, law enforcement moved swiftly. Police charged Charles with multiple serious offenses: assault, endangering an unborn child, and public disturbance. Each charge reflected the gravity of his actions and the documented evidence, including videos captured by guests and surveillance footage from the event. Amelia's courage in coming forward ensured that the legal process moved decisively, and the authorities treated the case with the urgency it demanded. Amelia, guided by her lawyer, took steps to secure restraining orders against Charles. The legal paperwork ensured that he could not approach her or interfere in her life, providing a layer of protection that she had long lacked. Her lawyer also explained that she was entitled to protective measures regarding her personal safety, and, importantly, access to certain marital assets due to clauses in their legal agreements triggered by evidence of domestic abuse. This information gave Amelia a sense of empowerment she had never felt under Charles's oppressive control. Despite his wealth and connections, Charles's attempts to manipulate the legal system failed. His lawyers tried to downplay the evidence, blaming alcohol, stress, or even the actions of the undercover security agents, but the facts were undeniable. The recorded videos, witness statements, and the severity of his aggression left little room for argument. Each failed attempt to influence proceedings eroded his confidence, reinforcing Amelia's position and demonstrating that power and money could not shield him from accountability. Amelia felt a cautious sense of relief as the legal protections took effect. The system, often distant and slow in high-profile cases, had acted decisively on her behalf. While the road ahead still held challenges, she could finally move forward knowing that Charles could no longer dominate her life, and that justice had begun to take shape in her favor. In the days and weeks following the traumatic gala, Amelia focused on her recovery, both physically and emotionally. The hospital became a temporary haven where she could rest, reflect, and regain her strength. She attended therapy sessions designed to help survivors of domestic abuse, speaking openly about the fear, tension, and manipulation she had endured. Each conversation helped her untangle the years of emotional strain that had kept her trapped in a relationship with Charles. Amelia also reached out to domestic abuse support networks, connecting with women who had faced similar challenges. Their stories offered encouragement and perspective, helping her understand that leaving Charles was not only brave but necessary for her own safety and the safety of her unborn child. She began to see that empowerment came from setting boundaries and reclaiming her autonomy, not from wealth or status. Meanwhile, the undercover security agents continued to check in discreetly, providing reassurance without imposing on her newfound independence. Their presence reminded Amelia that she was not alone and that her safety remained a priority. Slowly, she began to rebuild her life, reintroducing routines and small joys that had been absent for years under Charles's control. With each passing day, Amelia felt a renewed sense of strength. Simple things, preparing a meal, decorating a nursery, or walking through a park, became symbols of her freedom. The trauma remained, but it no longer defined her. Instead, it became a testament to her resilience. Amelia realized that while the scars of the past would linger, they would not dictate her future. She was determined to live fully, protect her child, and embrace the empowerment she had fought to reclaim. Despite his public humiliation and legal consequences, Charles was unwilling to accept defeat quietly. Determined to salvage his reputation and regain influence, he employed teams of lawyers and public relations specialists to craft a comeback strategy. Press releases highlighted his stress and personal struggles, interviews attempted to shift blame subtly, and selective media appearances were designed to restore his image. Yet, the public was unforgiving. The viral videos of his attack had left an indelible mark on society's perception, and his words fell on skeptical, angry ears. Legal protections prevented Charles from directly contacting Amelia. Every attempt to reach her, whether through letters, calls, or intermediaries, was blocked by restraining orders and her legal counsel. Each failed attempt only fueled his frustration and deepened the public narrative of his recklessness and dangerous behavior. Sponsors and business associates, once eager to associate with his power and charm, remained distant, unwilling to risk their own reputations. Even within the courtroom and corporate boardrooms, Charles's influence waned. Shareholders and executives scrutinized his every move, aware that any association with him could bring reputational damage. The combination of viral public outrage, the concrete evidence of the Gala attack, and the unwavering legal barriers prevented him from regaining control. His attempts to manipulate narratives or intimidate those around him were systematically dismantled by the protections Amelia had put in place. Amelia, on her side, observed his failed efforts from a position of safety. The realization that Charles could no longer threaten her life or freedom filled her with a profound sense of relief. While he fumed in private and sought to recover lost power, she continued to rebuild her life, confident that the combination of legal safeguards, public scrutiny, and her own resilience ensured he could never harm her again. The courthouse was tense, filled with murmurs of anticipation as Amelia walked through the doors, her baby bump visible beneath a modest but elegant dress. She held her head high, determined to face Charles one final time. The courtroom, filled with legal personnel, media representatives, and spectators, seemed charged with the gravity of the case. Charles sat across the room, attempting to project confidence, yet his eyes betrayed frustration and impatience. As the proceedings began, Charles's defense team tried to shift blame. They argued that his actions had been influenced by alcohol, stress, and the chaotic environment of the Gala. He feigned remorse, attempting to minimize the severity of his attack. Amelia listened intently, her hands clasped but her mind focused. She knew this was the moment to assert her truth and ensure the court recognized the reality of the abuse she had endured. When it was her turn to testify, Amelia spoke firmly, recounting the fear, humiliation, and danger she had experienced. She described the Gala, Charles's escalating aggression, and the moments when she feared for her life and the life of her unborn child. Her words were measured, precise, and courageous. Every statement was backed by evidence, witness accounts, and the viral videos that had captured the attack. The judge, listening to Amelia's testimony and reviewing the overwhelming evidence, delivered a firm verdict. Charles was condemned for his actions, sentenced to prison time, and fined heavily. The judgment was not just a legal decision but a societal statement: abuse, regardless of wealth or influence, carried consequences. Amelia left the courtroom with a profound sense of relief, knowing that justice had been served, and that she and her child could finally move forward without fear. After the courtroom victory, Amelia relocated to a secure and tranquil apartment, a space that symbolized her newfound freedom and independence. The atmosphere was peaceful, filled with light and warmth, a stark contrast to the oppressive environment she had endured under Charles. Every detail was chosen carefully: soft curtains, calming colors, and comforting textures that created a safe and nurturing space for her and her unborn child. Amelia devoted herself to preparing a nursery, choosing gentle pastel tones and decorating with love and intention. Each addition, crib, mobile, and carefully selected toys, represented hope and a commitment to building a life free from fear. The act of arranging the nursery, once unimaginable in Charles's mansion, became therapeutic, a tangible expression of control over her own life and environment. Security and support personnel remained discreetly present, checking in occasionally, ensuring that Amelia felt safe while allowing her the independence she craved. Their vigilance allowed her to venture into the world without anxiety, providing peace of mind as she adjusted to her new life. Daily routines gradually replaced anxiety with confidence. Amelia learned to trust her instincts, make decisions freely, and embrace small joys without hesitation. Shopping for baby essentials, preparing meals, or simply walking through the nearby park became acts of empowerment. She began to feel strong, capable, and fully in control of her life for the first time in years. In this secure home, Amelia experienced the quiet joy of autonomy. She realized that independence was not only possible but deeply rewarding. Every day, as she cared for her baby and nurtured herself, she solidified a life rooted in safety, love, and personal strength, a life built on the courage that had carried her through the darkest moments. The hospital room was filled with quiet anticipation and soft lights as Amelia prepared to welcome her baby into the world. After months of fear and trauma, the moment was both nerve-wracking and exhilarating. Labor was long and exhausting, but Amelia faced it with the strength she had cultivated through the months of surviving Charles's abuse. Each contraction was a reminder of her resilience, of the battles she had already endured, and the safety she had fought to secure for herself and her child. Finally, the cries of a newborn filled the room. Amelia's tears of relief flowed freely as she held her healthy baby in her arms for the first time. The sense of vulnerability she had carried for so long was replaced by profound love, awe, and joy. In that instant, she knew with absolute certainty that leaving Charles had been the right choice. This small, perfect life in her arms was a testament to her courage, determination, and ability to protect what mattered most. Friends, medical staff, and the discreet security team celebrated quietly in the background, their smiles and congratulations amplifying Amelia's sense of accomplishment. Every supportive word, every reassuring presence, reinforced the knowledge that she was no longer alone. The baby's first cries were a symbol of hope, renewal, and the beginning of a life free from fear. Amelia, exhausted but exhilarated, felt a weight lift from her shoulders. She realized that the darkest moments had given her the clarity to fight for this joy, and that the life she now held was a reward for her bravery and steadfastness. In the cold, gray walls of prison, Charles faced a reality he could no longer manipulate or escape. His wealth, influence, and once loyal allies were gone. Investors and business partners distanced themselves, fearing association with a man publicly condemned for violence. The empire he had built over decades crumbled under the weight of scandal and legal repercussions. Charles spent long hours watching news coverage from behind barred windows. Everywhere he looked, Amelia's name appeared, praised for her courage, her resilience, and her survival. The videos of the Gala attack, the quick intervention of the undercover security team, and her unwavering strength dominated headlines. He felt the bitter sting of public judgment, finally understanding that money and status could not protect him from accountability. Isolated and powerless, Charles confronted the magnitude of his downfall. The world he once controlled had moved on without him, leaving him with only the stark truth: he had destroyed not only his public image but his entire life. The realization was crushing, yet unavoidable. His reign of influence was over, his arrogance punished, and the man who terrorized Amelia was now helpless and forgotten. Amelia settled into a life of peace and independence, Her days now centered around the love and care of her child. The trauma she had endured no longer defined her, but it shaped her into a woman of remarkable strength and compassion. Each morning she woke with a renewed sense of purpose, dedicating herself to creating a safe, nurturing environment for her baby and embracing the freedom she had fought to secure. Beyond her personal recovery, Amelia became an advocate for women facing domestic abuse. She shared her story publicly and privately, offering hope and guidance to those trapped in similar situations. Her courage became a beacon, inspiring others to seek safety, reclaim their autonomy, and believe in the possibility of a new life beyond fear. The undercover security team, whose timely and decisive actions had saved her life, remained quietly acknowledged in her journey. Though their identities were never fully publicized, Amelia remembered them as her silent protectors, their vigilance and skill a critical element in her survival. Their presence reinforced the importance of preparedness, courage, and intervention in moments of crisis. In reflection, Amelia often shared a simple but profound message: no power, no wealth, can protect a monster. Courage and vigilance save lives. These words became a mantra for her daily life and her advocacy efforts. She had reclaimed her independence, safeguarded her child, and transformed trauma into empowerment. Amelia's life, once overshadowed by fear and manipulation, was now filled with love, safety, and the quiet strength that comes from surviving the unthinkable and building a future entirely of her own making.